In 1983, one man received a warning. It said nuclear missiles were coming. He had minutes to respond. If he followed his orders, the world would end. But he didn't. This is the story of the man who saved humanity by saying no. The year is 1983. The Cold War is at its most frigid point in years. On the other, the USSR, under the aging and hardline leadership of Yuri Andropov, a former KGB chief. The logic was simple, yet utterly insane. If either side launched a nuclear attack, the other would retaliate with overwhelming force, ensuring the annihilation of both. It was a global suicide pact. By the early 1980s, the tension had ratcheted up to an unbearable level. American Pershing II missiles were being deployed in West Germany, capable of striking Moscow in under 10 minutes. The Soviets saw this as a first-strike weapon, drastically reducing their time to react to a potential attack. Fear and paranoia gripped the leadership in both Washington and Moscow. Every shadow was a potential threat. Every blip on a radar screen, a possible harbinger of doom. In the Soviet Union, this paranoia manifested in a vast, technologically advanced early warning system. Deep within secret military bunkers, soldiers stared at screens day and night. Their sole purpose to provide the earliest possible detection of an American nuclear launch. The system, known as OKO, or I in Russian, relied on a constellation of satellites in high elliptical orbit. Their infrared sensors were designed to detect the intense heat bloom of a rocket engine igniting, the telltale sign of a launch, where a duty officer had to make the most consequential decision in human history. They would verify the threat and, if it was deemed real, pass the alert up the chain of command to the Soviet leadership, who would then have mere minutes to decide whether to launch a retaliatory strike. On the night of September 26, 1983, that duty officer was Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov. He was a 44-year-old officer in the Soviet Air Defense Forces. Stationed at Serpukhov 15, the secret command center for the OKO system just outside Moscow. It was a quiet night, just past midnight. The shift was proceeding as normal. The world outside was oblivious, people sleeping in their beds, unaware of the thin thread upon which their existence hung. For Petrov, it was supposed to be another routine night of watching and waiting. A boring but necessary job in the heart of the Soviet war machine. He was an analyst, a man of science and logic, not a frontline combat soldier. His role was to interpret data, to separate the signal from the noise. Suddenly, the calm was shattered. A piercing siren blared through the bunker. On the large electronic map of the United States, a light began to flash. Red letters lit up on the screen in front of him, spelling out a single, terrifying word: launch. The system was unequivocal. It had detected the launch of a single intercontinental ballistic missile from a base in the United States. According to protocol, Petrov had to report this to his superiors immediately. The system's reliability was considered absolute. A computer, devoid of human emotion or doubt, had made a calculation. A missile was in the air. Its target, the Soviet Union. As Petrov stared at the screen, his heart pounding, the seconds stretched into an eternity. The faces of his subordinates turned to him, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and expectation. They were trained for this. Every drill, every simulation had prepared them for this exact moment. His duty was clear: pick up the direct line to the high command and report the attack. But something held him back. A single missile. It didn't make sense. A first strike from the Americans wouldn't be a single missile. It would be an overwhelming assault. It was suicide. Then the situation escalated dramatically. Before Petrov could even fully process the first alarm, another siren went off. Another missile launch detected, and then a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. The screen was now a cascade of red warnings. The system was now reporting a small but coordinated nuclear attack. 5 Minuteman missiles were apparently screaming across the atmosphere on a trajectory toward Soviet territory. The computer had upgraded the threat level to its highest classification, missile attack. The evidence was overwhelming. The electronic map showed their flight paths. The system's log confirmed the detections. Every piece of data, every sensor reading, screamed that the unthinkable was happening. America had started World War III. On the night of September 26, 1983, Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov was the duty officer at the Serpukhov 15 Command Center, a secret bunker just outside Moscow. His job was to monitor OKO, the Soviet Union's early warning satellite system. For hours, the night had been uneventful, just another shift in the tense, high-stakes world of the Cold War, but just past midnight, everything changed. A piercing siren shattered the silence. A single ominous word flashed in red on the screen. Launch. The system was reporting that a Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missile had been launched from the United States and was heading toward the Soviet Union. Moments later, second missile appeared. Then a third, a fourth, and a fifth. The system was now screaming that a nuclear attack was underway. The protocol was crystal clear. Petrov's duty was unambiguous. He was to verify the threat and immediately relay the alert up the chain of command to his superiors. From there, the report would go to General Secretary Yuri Andropov. If the alert was confirmed, a retaliatory strike would be a near certainty. The system was designed for speed and decisiveness. Under immense pressure, with alarms blaring and every light on the console flashing red, Petrov was the single point of failure or success, a chain reaction that could lead to global thermonuclear war. His colleagues stared at him, their faces pale, waiting for his command. The entire Soviet nuclear arsenal, and by extension, the fate of the world, rested on his next words. He picked up the phone to make the report. But as he held the receiver, a deep, gnawing doubt began to creep in. Something felt profoundly wrong. He looked at the screens again. Only 5 missiles. He knew that a first strike from the United States wouldn't be so limited. A genuine attack would be a massive, all-out assault designed to overwhelm Soviet defenses completely. It would involve hundreds, if not thousands, of missiles launched from land, sea, and air. A mere handful. A 5-missile strike made no strategic sense. It was just enough to provoke a full-scale retaliation, but not enough to cripple the Soviet Union's ability to strike back. It was illogical. It was, in his words, a strange way to start a war. He then turned to another screen, the one displaying data from ground-based radar. According to protocol, these radars should have picked up the incoming missiles as they rose above the horizon. But the screen was blank. The radar operators were reporting nothing. The sky was clear. So he had one system screaming that the world was ending, and another, equally reliable system, telling him that everything was perfectly normal. The computer was certain, but the physical evidence was absent. In that moment, Stanislav Petrov faced an impossible choice. He could trust the brand-new, multi-billion-ruble satellite system, the pride of the Soviet military, and report the attack as protocol demanded. If he did, he would be following his orders perfectly. No one could blame him for the consequences. Or he could trust his gut, his experience as a soldier and an engineer, which told him this was a malfunction, a catastrophic error in the system he himself had helped design. He had less than 15 minutes to decide. He knew the software was new, and he had seen it make errors during testing. He reasoned that the satellite-S sensors could be mistaking the reflection of sunlight off high-altitude clouds for missile launches, a rare alignment of cosmic and atmospheric conditions. It was a long shot, a theory based on intuition against a machine screaming with certainty. The pressure was unimaginable. His subordinates were urging him to report the attack. The direct line to his superiors was open, waiting. Every second that passed was a second closer to a potential impact. With the fate of hundreds of millions of people hanging in the balance, Stanislav Petrov made his decision. He picked up the phone to his commanding officer and with a steady voice that betrayed none of the turmoil within him, he reported the alarm as false. He declared it a system malfunction. It was an act of profound insubordination. He was directly disobeying the strict military protocol he had sworn to uphold. If he was wrong, and those missiles were real, his decision would have doomed his country. The first warheads would detonate on Soviet soil in minutes. And he would be remembered as the man who failed to warn them, the traitor who enabled the enemy's victory. If he was right, however, no one would ever know. His act of defiance would be buried in a classified report, and the world would sleep on, blissfully unaware of how close it had come to annihilation. After making the call, all he could do was wait. The minutes stretched into an eternity. The screen still showed the missiles streaking toward their targets. The sirens still wailed. His colleagues watched him, their faces a mixture of fear and disbelief. Had their commander just doomed them all? Petrov remained at his post, his heart pounding, staring at the clock and the radar screen. 10 minutes passed, then 15. 20, the estimated time of impact, came and went. And then, death. No explosions, no blinding flashes on the horizon. No seismic shockwaves. Just the quiet hum of the command center's electronics. The ground-based radars remained clear. The silence was deafening, but it was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. The missiles never arrived because they had never existed. His hunch, his incredible, terrifying gamble, had been correct. It was a false alarm. He had been right. Humanity would live to see another day. And so, as the world slept, completely unaware of how close it had come to annihilation, Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov returned to his duties. But there was no hero's welcome, no medals, no parades. In fact, for his defiance of protocol, he was intensely interrogated by his superiors. His logbook entries were scrutinized, his every action questioned. He was neither rewarded nor punished, but simply sidelined. He was eventually reassigned to a less sensitive post and took early retirement a year later. For more than a decade, the world knew nothing of the man who held its fate in his hands. The incident was classified as top secret, buried deep within the archives of the Soviet military. Petrov lived a quiet, modest life on a meager pension in a small town outside Moscow. The man who had single-handedly prevented a global thermonuclear war was, for all intents and purposes, forgotten. The weight of his decision, the memory of those flashing red screens, stayed with him, a silent burden he carried alone. It wasn't until the late 1990s, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, that his story finally came to light. A general who had been present that night published his memoirs, and the world learned of the lieutenant colonel who chose reason over protocol. Even then, Petrov remained humble, never seeing himself as a hero. He would often say, "I was just in the right place at the right time." But history shows us something different. It shows us that in moments of extreme pressure, when systems are designed to escalate, it can take a single individual's humanity to break the chain. Petrov's story is a stark reminder that the greatest acts of courage often happen far from the battlefield. In quiet rooms, under the intense pressure of a split-second decision. He wasn't a general or a politician. He was an analyst who trusted his gut feeling that something was wrong. His actions teach us that true heroism isn't always about following orders, but about having the wisdom to question them. It's a testament to the profound impact one person's conscience can have on the course of human history. If you believe that the quiet, untold stories are often the most important, and that history is shaped by individuals as much as by empires, consider subscribing. We are dedicated to uncovering more of these essential narratives. Thank you for joining us.